Also, just to say, if anybody does need the facilities, it's just down there and sort of around to the back of the hall. So, with no further ado, I shall pass you over to the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, Roger Hurst.
Hi everyone. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. You can take the seats at the front as well. You don't have to sit at the back, but there we go. I'm Roger Hurst, I'm the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. We're using the mics because we record these meetings for the benefit of the broader public. And so when it comes to Q&A, most of this evening will be questions and answers. Please, can I just ask if you would use the mic? The cameras are only on us, so you won't be identified. If you wish to name yourselves, then please do. If you don't, then don't bother. We don't need to know. Just interesting to know where you're from and who you're representing if you are representing somebody. As I say, I'm Roger Hurst. I'll quickly introduce the panel. Shall we start with, please?
Yeah, good evening everybody. Jenna French, I'm the District Commander for Harlow.
Thank you. I'm delighted to welcome our new District Commander to Harlow. My name is Councillor John Charles. I'm the Cabinet Member for Public Protection on Harlow District Council.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Steve Winthrop, I'm the Group Manager, I'm the North West Commander. Sounds a bit Roman that, doesn't it? But I'm in charge of the North West Command, which covers Harlow, Uttlesford and Braintree districts.
You make it sound like the 9th Legion.
If only I'd done numbers.
Maybe just a few words to kick off from me, but as I say, mainly we're here to hear from you, see if we can answer your questions, see if we can address issues for you. And if we can, then we'll do it tonight. If not, then we will post additional answers on the PSCC website later, so that you can actually catch up. But we'll do what we can this evening and see if we can get on top of things for you. So, from my perspective, we are, I think, in pretty good shape in Essex Police and in the County Fire and Rescue Service now. We have invested fairly heavily over the last few years. You're probably aware Essex Police, 900 officers stronger than it used to be. So it is as big as it's ever been, in fact bigger than it's ever been. And we have been managing to reduce crime for the last few years. Here in Harlow in the last year, I think overall crime down by about 12%. We've reduced antisocial behaviour by about 17%, and some key crimes such as burglary down by very nearly 40%. So some quite good successes there, and I won't push my luck by saying too many other stats, because as soon as you claim some benefit, then it turns out that criminals decide that they're going to try and get their own back. So we won't push that too far. But also on the fire and rescue side, I think it's been a good investment over the last few years, particularly in our protection activity, which is around keeping buildings safe. We've got a good response set up already, and I think it's pretty effective across the piece. We have managed to reduce the number of house fires over the last few years by about 20% by investing in our prevention activity as well. But the protection activity has been a particular challenge. That was somewhere where the inspectorate said we had more to do. We have put more people into that. We have increased the training there, and we are actually working very closely with the council here locally to make sure that some of your high-rise buildings are as safe as they can be. As you may well be aware, we did actually have to issue a prevention notice on Joseph Rank House a little while ago, and we are really keen to make sure that the places where people live here in Harlow are as safe as they need to be. We can't afford to have too much risk in that sort of environment. You may have some questions about that later. But I'm really pleased that we're in the shape that we are. As ever, public money is tight. Nothing new about that. We have had, as I say, support from central government for the last few years. We've had your support as well. Thank you very much for what you've done through the council tax precept. It has, I think, improved the service. This last year we had a little bit of a to and fro with the new government about the shape of the budget for 25-26, which you probably read in the newspapers, where there was a threat that we're not going to get enough money, and we're actually going to have to downsize policing, particularly through letting the PCSOs go. But I'm really pleased to say that we managed to avoid that. We had quite a lot of loud support. Is support the right word? They were having a go at me, but we used it very well with central government. and we did win the money that we needed to win. Sadly, we are having to let some police staff go at the moment. That's a process which is ongoing because it wasn't quite enough to bridge the gap completely. But we have managed to save the PCSOs and we have managed to keep the officer strength. So I'm confident that we are in a shape to be able to continue to reduce crime across Essex, and particularly here in Harlow, with the aid of your new district commander. So, yeah, I think a good story to tell, but there will be things that you know about what's going on here, which we will need to hear. I'm not trying to say that everything's perfect. My ambition is that we will actually get to a situation where we have got crime down to historic lows over the next few years. My ambition as well is that we will see success from the Fire and Rescue Service in continuing to reduce the number of house fires, and particularly the number of people hurt or even killed in house fires. We have had some good success there as well, and we'll continue to. And the other area I think where we need, as services across the police, to do more is around road safety. It is still the case that far too many people die on our roads, almost always as a result of some sort of road crime, speeding, drug driving, drink driving, not wearing your seatbelt, using your mobile phone at the wheel. They're almost always involved in road fatalities. There's more we can do. We can invest more in education, we can invest more in enforcement, we can invest more as well in engineering with the highways authorities. But it's a big job, and it is just worth bearing in mind actually, road crime kills more people in this county than all other crime put together. So, if anything, I'd actually quite like to appeal to you in this room as well, and just try in your own personal lives to make sure if you are in a car with somebody who's speeding, tell them that it's worse than carrying a knife. It is a very serious crime. I do get letters from people who say, I've been stopped for speeding, why don't you go out and arrest people for serious crime? It is serious crime. It kills more people than domestic abuse. It kills more people than drug crime. So we will continue to invest in that. It's quite serious stuff. That's probably enough from me. Thank you for listening. But let's get on with the main business, which is your questions, and see what we can pick up. Glenn has the roving microphone, so Glenn, away you go.
Okay, well, I'll start from this gentleman there. Just to mention that these microphones, if you hold them up there and you hear them, if they go down there, so it's always best just to have them up there.
You demonstrate quite well.
I'll just pass it over to you.
Good evening, Roger and panel. I'm David Foreman, former Secretary of Harlow Trade Union Council. I wrote to you, Mr. Hurst, quite a number of months ago regarding an HMI FRCS report that criticised Essex Police regarding Section 40 PACE reviews of custody. This is where the inspector reviews the ongoing detention of someone in the cells, and there was criticism regarding its application in relation to vulnerable adults and children. There was also a question of dragging in sergeants from the general policing, community policing team to act as custody officers, custody sergeants, which really is a sort of specialised role that's normally done by permanent staff. And you wrote back very kindly, as you always do. I can honestly say that Roger Hurst is one of the few publicly paid servants who writes back to me 100%. So my congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But you wrote back and said that there were going to be more sergeants recruited to be custody sergeants. Could you give me an update on the progress of that, and whether there's still any ongoing concerns regarding the review of custody of vulnerable adults and children in particular? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, an important question. Yes, that caused a review of our custody structure, and we have now put in place a substantial additional new number of custody sergeants. You might even actually know better than I. Are they all in place?
Yeah.
I think was it 58?
I don't know.
It was quite a large number of new sergeants actually brought into the custody space to avoid the issues that you are specifically referring to there. We also have actually rationalise the custody estate, because quite unusually these days for a police service, we had quite a number of custody suites across the county. Now, Essex is a large county. Hertfordshire is a lot smaller. Hertfordshire has one custody suite. Yeah. We had 7 plus Stansted, which, why do I say Stansted separate? Because it's specifically for the airport. It's not a general custody suite. And we have decided that we have had to close Clacton. So prisoners who would otherwise have gone to Clacton now go to Colchester. And we have had to close Basildon. Basildon, we'd already closed on the grounds that it was not up to modern standards. But we've decided not to do the work and reopen it, but to use Grays and Southend instead. So there are two down there. So we've now got 5 plus Stansted around the county, and as you rightly point out, it needed doing. Am I confident that we are no longer in a situation where we'll get any critique from HMICFRS? I know we've done the work. I know the people are in place. I know that we are working better than we were. I commission also independent custody visitors who go and check on what's going on in custody, and we are getting positive reports back from them. But it is part of my job to not just accept that the work's been done, but to scrutinise on an ongoing basis that it's being effective. So we will continue to do that. So I am happy that I'm content that we've actually seen the work done and the changes made that needed to be done. Is it actually being effective, and are we no longer dealing with vulnerable adults or children in a way which the inspector wouldn't like? I need to keep on monitoring that.
Thank you very much.
Next time, it's about our kind of letters.
Good evening. My name's Gary Roberts. I live about 500 metres away in Potter Street. The question is directed to Mr. Hurst. On 4 times that you come into office, I've asked you to attend or meet with me to discuss policing in Potter Street. Not only me, but members of the residents group that don't see a police officer from one day to the next. Every time I've been told you can't attend for a special meeting or a special dinner or a meeting. But no dates were offered where you could come and actually meet me, which I am not happy with really. It seems to be that you seem to be a person that deals with people but not with the residents of my area, which is a shame, and I want to see if you can actually change that and come and meet with me and have a walk around Potter Street with me to discuss policing issues. Secondly, you attend passing out parades with ministers, and you have articles in your Harlow saying how great it is to have more officers. But when you look deeper into the figures, the number of retirements and leavers and long-term illnesses, it appears that we've got fewer officers, resulting that when I ask if a one officer can come and walk, not in a car, walk the streets, because Potter Street is an old and retired area with a lot of disabled people in it, and it needs an officer to walk the streets. When naval policing was there was no issues, because officers attended meetings as well, which was fantastic. Naval policing is no longer around, so I would ask you to provide one officer, hopefully 2, to actually walk Potter Street so that people see you and come up and talk to police officers, because they are, say scared, I don't suppose that's true, but they're not prepared to come out at night, and that is an absolute disgrace. But they should be allowed to come out to actually in the evenings, but they don't do it apparently. And so finally, you get a larger amount of council tax. You can't provide one officer for my area. Every year you increase your council tax proportion, but we can't get police officers for the Potter Street. Can I ask why, please? Thank you. Could I have a word with the inspector again, please?
The Chief Inspector might want to come in at some point on this, but I'll try and address some of your points to start with. So, firstly, I'm sorry if I've turned you down 4 times. That doesn't sound very good, and I apologise for that. I mean, I'm unlikely to attend a dinner, but coming for a walk around in Harlow is something that I have done several times, and next time I do it, we should make sure that we include Potter Street on that so we can see what the issues there are. Maybe, can I just ask you, I'll give you a bit of an answer, but can I also ask you to give us a bit of elaboration on what the issues on Potter Street are?
There's a lot of crap dealing along that street. And one thing I'm going to bring up with the officer, the inspector again, before I'll discuss it as a personal matter, I'll discuss. But drug dealing along Latham Street, which is behind Castle Meeting Street, is now starting to get out of hand. And people having their car looked at. Is the word you use, but unfortunately some of them get into, which is not good.
That's not good. So vehicle interference and vehicle theft and drug dealing are issues that are happening on your road.
That's 2 issues that I was putting forward. I think there are others.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, as I said, I'll make sure next time I'm in Harlow that we actually include a walk down and we actually get in contact with you and make sure that we will meet up there and have a look and have a talk about it. In terms of the party hat parades, yes, I mean, you're right, we have done a lot of them, and some of them we have been honoured by the presence of a Home Secretary or whatever. Of course we have retirements. People do leave, and people actually leave for other reasons as well. And we have had people leave for reasons of ill health. Overall, on average, we see somewhere around, I mean, plus or minus a few tens, somewhere around 250 people a year leave. We've been hiring much more rapidly than that. So over the last 5 years, we've hired 2,000 additional officers. So the actual shape of the force has changed quite a lot. And we're in a situation now that something like 40% of our officers have been with us for 3 years or so, which is quite a lot of new people for Chief Inspector to look after and make sure that they are doing their job properly and effectively. We put a lot of money into training, but net, so taking the levers off the recruits, we are 905 people stronger than we were in 2018, and we are bigger than we have ever been by a couple of hundred.
Where are they from?
And we have also, I mean, that's also the case in Harlow. You have
How
more.
many people in Harlow?
How many have you got in Harlow? I've noted that here. So in total, we've got, in terms of uniformed officers doing local policing, we have 67 here in Harlow, plus, of course, additional 23 or so doing neighbourhood policing, and a town centre team of, are they part of the neighbourhood policing team, the 5? No. Okay. And then, of course, we have investigators and CID, etc. around as well. So those are just the uniformed officers who are actually looking after you permanently here in Harlow, which, as I say, is more than have ever been before. The issue about foot patrol is an interesting one, because foot patrol is not, at the moment, hasn't been for a couple of decades, the most effective way of preventing crime. Criminals are motorised, criminals are on bikes. If you simply are on foot, you won't get to them. We do very much rely on the relationship with the public to report things, but equally well, we've had real success with the hotspot policing model, which actually is foot patrols in hotspots for crime. Or indeed antisocial behaviour. So that's where we have proactive patrols that actually work on very closely with the council. Your council officers have been very supportive in that. In key areas where we have an identified hotspot for crime, and it's reduced crime quite a lot. Potter Street hasn't been identified as one of those hotspots. Perhaps we need to look at that again and see what we do. Tuesday, do you want to say anything particular about Cross Street in the area around there?
I was just going to add around the fact that every ward in Harlow does have a dedicated neighbourhood policing officer. I can't remember who it is for your area off the top of my head, but the neighbourhood inspector is at the back of the room, so before you leave, we'll make sure that you get the name and contact details for your dedicated officer. They're always more than willing to come out and speak to residents, go on a walk around to understand the key issues in those areas so that we can put plans in place to tackle them and reduce the crime and ASB that you're saying is in lots of streets at the moment. I think Mr. Hurst has covered everything else in that question.
When I speak to your officer,
Do you want to give the mic back, please?
when I speak to residents, I usually go to the shop in the old shop, one of the cheapest. There's a police officer there that I speak to when they go out board. They tell me that morale in Harlow Police is on the floor. I ask them, are you able to come to Pod Street to patrol? And they say no, we haven't got the numbers, and morale is on the floor. Now, are they telling me lies, or is that the case? Is that the case?
I think we just take that. I mean, that's feedback for us. I certainly hadn't heard that morale in Harlow is that low, but thank you for raising it, and I think it's something we can look into. Do you want to say anything more on that?
No.
John.
Thank you, Roger. And Gary, thank you for your question. I think it's an important point that in all our communities we make sure that there is a visible presence. Now, of course, the council has its own community safety team, and what I would also say to you is one of the core priorities of the blue light services, probation, criminal justice partners widely, and charities and the council is to tackle county liners and drugs. That is a Safer Harlow partnership priority. Now, the Safer Harlow partnership brings all those bodies together, has specific action groups to deal with those sorts of issues. And historically, there have been challenges in the past, and we know that you can never be complacent when it comes to that issue. The other point I would make is that working with the community safety team, we will make sure that when Roger is next scheduled to come to Harlow, we'll factor in a visit to Potter Street and liaise with the Residents Association there. I'm grateful that you've raised that point with us. I would just like to focus on your morale point very briefly. I had the privilege of going out with officers in Harlow doing the late night, early morning shift. Those officers were out patrolling the streets, and not just in cars but on foot, in the early hours, dealing with gritty situations. And from what I saw, it was a very positive bunch of people, a young force in that station, but they're working hard for Harlow, and it was impressive to see.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Yes, sir, there's a question over here.
Thank you for coming tonight. My name is David Carson, I'm a local councillor. I've got two questions. The first one is about the tolerance regarding shoplifters. I understand in London that when they are arrested, when they are picked up, they're not arrested until they've got over a certain figure that they've actually stolen. I'd like to know if that's the same in Harlow, or is there no tolerance, as I believe there should be no tolerance for shoplifters. Our second question is about what is the police's view regarding e-scooters? E-scooters are all around the town, driving on places they shouldn't be. They're driving quite fast and they're quite dangerous. What is the police's view regarding e-scooters? Thank you.
I'll start with e-scooters. I'll give you a personal view first, which is I just cannot see how they are compatible with our current traffic patterns. They're not suitable for pavements because they're too fast for pedestrians, they're a hazard, and they're not suitable for the road because their centre of balance is in a very strange place, and they're not particularly obvious that people aren't wearing helmets. Yeah, they are a motorised vehicle, and they're not registered. I'm sure many of us have seen people riding them in a way which is well, quite scary, I think is probably the way to put it. And of course, we very sadly had 2 young people lose their lives on an e-scooter in Basildon in the very recent weeks, which was hugely traumatic for their family and indeed for the person who hit them. There are government studies. I'll give you the more official view now. I mean, there are government studies ongoing which are looking at how risky they are. They're looking at trials of them being used in particular ways and with rentals. And yeah, the trials keep on getting extended. I don't know why, and they're not getting all the answers they want to get. I don't know. But certainly our experience here in Essex, talking to our head of roads policing, is the number of injuries and indeed deaths per travelled kilometre is much, much higher than other forms of transport. Powered two-wheelers as a whole, so motorbikes, are much riskier than cars, much riskier than trucks, but e-scooters look to be much, much more dangerous than that. I personally would want to see them taken off the road immediately. We have got measures in place for taking them off the road when they're being used unlawfully. I think we've crushed a few hundred of them across the county, haven't we now? But that isn't, to me, the adequate response. Yeah, you remember those Segway things that people rode? They proved to be very dangerous as well, and they've basically passed away. They're no longer around. I'd love to see the same happen to e-scooters. Not the same with e-bikes. As far as I can see, e-bikes are actually a environmentally friendly way of having a not very high-powered motorbike. But with e-bikes, I would have them registered like any motorbike, and I'd have the same rules around wearing helmets, because if you can travel 25, 30 miles an hour on a powered vehicle, you're putting yourself and other road users at risk, and we need to be managing that in the same sensible way that we do with other vehicles. The Chief Inspector may have some stuff to add about that, but that's my view, and that's our experience as I've been told it by the head of roads policing. In terms of tolerance of shoplifters, we have no minimum amount here in Essex. You're right, the press is full of £200 and you'll get away with it. Certainly our policy here is that we're looking at people, not individual thefts. And if you go and steal £150 of goods from 6 shops, you've had quite a big day's take, haven't you? That is the sort of behaviour that we can see from repeat perpetrators of shoplifting, and it is our policy that we are wanting to take repeat perpetrators off the streets. I've had meetings recently with most of the big supermarkets, the Co-op, Tesco's, Asda, talking to them about what we can do better together to make sure that we are stopping shoplifting, or at least massively reducing it. It has been a real surge in shoplifting since COVID. It's taken off, and it's certainly being done by people who are doing it in an organised manner. I mean, referring to them as an organised crime gang probably would be a bit over-dramatic, but they are certainly organised, and they are certainly committing crime, and they are certainly using techniques that you would never have dreamt of. So getting elderly people to go and do their shoplifting for them because they look unlikely to be shoplifters, offering them money to do so, and then taking the stolen goods and of course putting it through their fencing, their resale networks to get rid of it, and making the money out of it that way. Quite a sophisticated criminal approach. We have got a fairly sophisticated policing response now. I think in the last year we have taken 1,400 or so shoplifters off the streets of Essex, and we will continue to take that serious approach to it. Is there anything you wish to add, Chief Inspector? Just for registered mass anyway.
Yeah, in terms of the tolerance for shoplifting, as Mr. Hurst said, we don't have a tolerance. In fact, we're trying to make it easier for our frontline officers to charge shoplifters, and we've recently agreed with the Criminal Prosecution Service that for those cases where there is clear evidence that shoplifting has taken place and it's that person that's committed it, we no longer need to interview them, and we can actually proceed without an interview. So we're trying to actually make the process much quicker and easier. in order to get people before the courts, which can be sometimes a time process. Here in Harlow, obviously we've got the Town Link radios and the Town Centre team and Community Policing team respond to those calls and respond to shopliftings really quickly, so we're have a much better chance of catching those that are responsible, and that seems to work really well in Harlow. I've worked in districts all around the county, and actually I've got to say those relationships here in Harlow are really, really good, and alongside the community safety team as well from the local authority. And also we're looking at the long-term problem solving around shoplifting, making sure that once we have got those convictions that we're getting criminal behaviour orders on people and banning them from those particular areas if they're in a particular shop or a particular area of Harlow. But it's also about making sure that we're looking at the drivers behind that crime and working with the Safer Harlow Partnership to make sure that we're putting the right things in place. Because as we know, shoplifting might be because of financial concerns, it might be because of drug or mental health. There's so many different things that drives crime. So it's not just about convicting those people, but it's also making sure that we're getting the support in place to prevent and break that cycle of crime. In terms of e-scooters, they're illegal. We will seize them. In fact, we seized 2 this weekend in Harlow Town Centre. And we've also got the public space protection order that we can use to target anyone in the town centre that's using the vehicles when they shouldn't be. I don't think we've got anything like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got a question from this gentleman here, then gentleman there, and I'll come to you, okay?
Just on e-scooters, you may or may not be aware that Harlow Council recently voted to explore, or to be part of the government trials that are going on. Have there been any discussions with the police as to a police view as to whether or not that's a good idea or not? I mean, I'm picking up a great deal of hesitancy from you with regards to e-scooters. What I wonder is whether or not there is actually any formal discussion with you as the police give a view as to whether or not one ought to be going down that path. That's my first question. My second question relates to the town centre and the success or otherwise of policing in the town centre. About 4 years ago, I was one of the people that was campaigning for an increased presence in the town centre, the local council for that particular area. We subsequently had some discussions in one of the pubs, which is now subsequently being closed down, in the town when there was issues around, particularly in relation to drug use and also violence. There have been issues of violence. My reason for asking was I was in the town centre today, at about midday today, or thereabouts, and again there was groups of youth around and a fight kicked off, which was alarming for the residents of the cafe who were sitting looking out on it, on the issue of the work. Fortunately, it then dispersed, but there was no police anywhere around to be seen. So I just wondered what your views are with regard to the efficiency or otherwise, or the effectiveness or otherwise, of policing within the town centre. Thank you.
So, thanks for that. I remember our conversation in the clock tower, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And yes, we made some changes then, and from the reports, it's a lot better than it was. I'm very disappointed to hear that you actually have that experience today. But certainly there's been a stronger police presence and a stronger coordination with the town centre operators, the traders, etc. in the town centre. I think it's had quite a lot of success. But Councillor Charles may wish to add something.
Yeah, just before I jump into the issues around town centre policing and what the council does around tackling antisocial behaviour, just on your first point around the e-scooter consultation, you've characterised that correctly. The council's cabinet, of which I think you was in attendance, had a discussion and agreed to explore the possibility of having an e-scooter trial. It's an exploration of that idea and how that may work in practice. No decision has been made yet, and as part of that, all the blue light services will be consulted as part of that process. There's a regimented, as you know, consultation process that local authorities undertake to understand these types of big decisions. The focus for the council is making sure that everyone can enjoy our public spaces, our walkways, our cycle tracks, and that will be a key factor as part of that consultation. When it comes to the town centre and policing, very recently, because one of the hotspot areas, as modelled by the evidence-led approach by the police in Essex, the Gates area in the town centre is one of those areas where there has been issues around crime and antisocial behaviour that has warranted focus. And as a result of that, and the hotspot policing model, we were very pleased that the Police Fire and Crime Commissioner allocated additional funding to patrol that area. That was in the winter, and actually that has seen some success. When you look at the round picture of the town centre, our focus as a council, of course, is to ensure that we are, as we are already, the majority landowner of the town centre, and to acquire more land to deliver the regeneration ambitions. The key route to addressing antisocial behaviour and crime is the council's plan to regenerate the town centre. That, to us, is one of the key priorities, working in tandem with the police so that we can restore pride in our town.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you. Now there's a gentleman here, and I'll come to the lady over there.
Thank you, Ollie. Nice to see you again. Seem to be quite regularly these days. The e-scooter one has been explored. I didn't know whether you had been informed there was this possibility of a trial, and you should be consulted. Your remarks, as far as I'm concerned, cover what I'm concerned about the possibility of these kind of. I know there will be all sorts of restrictions. There's two things really. What I was wanting to talk about is you mentioned during your opening speaking and the accident. Unfortunately, in our Harlow, we've now got this Gilded Way, which is the link to the junction 7A, which is there has been a speed check on it, and tell me there is not a speed, but I get calls almost on a weekly, daily basis from residents who they're either waiting for a bus or waiting to cross the traffic lights of cars jumping red lights. I've often conjecture as to whether you feel they're speeding or not. They seem to be quite speedy. So whether you could up your patrols to look at that a bit, or whether there's any suggestions you could come, because I can't think of anything we could put in place that would solve the problem there. It's a 40 mile an hour, but I drive there along there at 40, but people are whizzing past me. Even tonight I was coming up the 414 to here, which is 50, and I was just under 50 at 45, and there was one car which was probably doing 70 in and out, weaving around. You can't stop it, but you can't be anywhere to catch it. The other thing was, I belong, as I said before, the community speed watch, and my little group has stopped doing it because the frustration we have with it is that we spend an hour and we probably get at least 30 people that have gone between 40, this is on station road, which is 30 mile an hour limit. They're doing 40, 50 mile an hour. We report. And as it is today, as far as I know, is they get a letter. They're called again, they get a second letter. It's only the third time when something is done about it. We have had officers out on the odd occasion, but they turn up, they've got all their nice painted cars, they've got flash jackets on, and you can see people turning down the bottom of the road, turning around, because they probably have got insurance or something. So I'm wondering whether somehow you can toughen on that. We've stopped doing it now because of frustration. but you know, three times before anything happens. Whether there's any suggestion you can do on that to encourage us to go back, if you like. Thank you.
Well, I'd really like to encourage you to go back because we know that Community Speed Watch makes a big difference to speeding behaviour. I do it near a school. I live in Brentwood, so in the school at the end of our road. I do Community Speed Watch there as well. And you do get the occasional rude gesture from the people who are slowing down because they see you, but you get many more complimentary gestures from those who are behaving themselves and pleased to see you actually helping other people behave. Community Speed Watch is an educational activity, it's not an enforcement activity, and I think we kind of need to get that across to the groups in a better way. I don't know, do you want to come in on CSW at all at some point, Steve, when I've perhaps handed the mic around a bit? But it does make a difference, and you say only on the third attempt. On the third attempt they get a visit from a police officer, and I think we've seen in the press how upsetting that can be to some people. So it does help people change how they are behaving. So please, if you can reconstitute your group, Mike, I'd really appreciate it.
I'll talk to you.
In terms of what can be done, we build the highways agencies build these wonderful new roads, and when they're doing it, we normally say to them, would you put some sort of speed restrictions on them, and preferably as well, the best things are the average speed cameras, because people do seem to understand that that is an average and that they're going to get caught on the whole stretch as opposed to just a single photograph. And again, it changes behaviour, which is what we're trying to do. So that may be the way to do it, but I don't know. Have you had much experience?
I'll just come in briefly, which Councillor Garnett, you're absolutely right around Gildon Way. Obviously, the funding that has already been secured by yourself and Essex Highways around the Casualty Reduction Fund has made a difference on that road. And of course, Highways is looking at certain areas along Gildon Way where there is a particular issue. There was a nasty accident only a few weeks ago where it was reported in the press that the individual in the van that exited Mayfield Farm Bakery was intoxicated, and that caused the serious accident that took place. And I know that Essex Highways with you are looking at that particular issue to improve road safety. The broader point is this though, that in tandem with the police and the growing Gildon Park Residents Association and the Churchgate Street Residents Association, which border each other, we need to do a bit more community work. The perfect vehicle for that is the Community Speed Watch, and I certainly would recommend getting more volunteers in the community to join that initiative because it does make a difference.
Sorry, I thought that we can only do on 30 mile an hour roads, not 40.
That is correct. But I was just going to add that the neighbourhood policing team will come out and do speed checks in any areas where residents feel that we've got regular speeding vehicles. Obviously they can't be everywhere at once, but where we can, I'm more than happy for the team to deploy. I'll also look at whether there's a possibility of that site being a true campsite. I'm not sure if it is or whether it can be, but it's something we can look at. But I'm a big supporter of Community Speed Watch, and I'd love to come out with your Community Speed Watch if you can get them back together and come out with you for the day.
I should add just briefly that the neighbourhood police team have been out along Gildon Way and very recently did catch some drivers speeding, so it's great to hear on the district commander and the commitment she's made.
Yeah. While you're looking at Gildon Way, can you also look yet again at the junction of multiple roads from First Avenue, which remains, despite the putting in of a block, remains an incredibly dangerous junction.
So just to add to that really, as part of our service delivery plan for 2025, and Harlow is one of the areas which is part of the prevention pilot scheme, and Dan who runs the station at Harlow Fire Station sat at the back there, sorry Dan, highlighted that, we're getting involved in all sorts of new prevention activity. Key thing there is also looking at new road safety prevention work. and the work you're doing there is one element of that which is critical. We're also, this year, for our own operational crews, I sat on the training this weekend actually, we have what we call CSAT training, which is basically it's a refresher training. As part of that is understanding the zero death desire to prevent ZEFs on the roads. I mean, I personally myself, I've been to 4 fatalities a year myself, and I think 2 of those were within 100 metres of each other on the A120, within 40 minutes of each other. So that was just recently. So our desire is to try and drive that down. So we're looking to try and get into schools, to try and influence people at key points in their lives that, you know, speed does kill. And that also, back to the e-scooter stuff as well, that links into the e-scooter strategies as well, and the very people when they're first becoming mobile will pick up those vehicles and try to have a positive influence on their mindset of what can happen when they get on the road, and the reality that we see far too often when we go to work, and the impact that has on our communities and all the things we're talking about here. So that is one element. It's a really good positive thing, but obviously our crews are going to be trying to put that message out there more strongly as well in a package of prevention activity which we're developing as we speak.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Check lady here, all want to
Thank you. My name is Maureen Foreman. I've got two issues. The first one is the antisocial behaviour that's happening in Sumners, and on your Harlow we had an article about buses stop running in the evening and Sundays, and I know for a fact that a lot of people who live there use the bus I used to, and go to work in the hospital. So hospital do long shift, and they can't park, there's no parking, so they rely on those buses. And I just wonder, what is the police doing about this? I understand that the bus companies, why should they keep putting a bus there when they're getting smashed all the time? Insurance go up and a lot of money is wasted. So what is happening? What is the police actually doing about this? And the second one is knife crime. I know you said it's reduced, etc. But to tell you the truth, I don't feel that it's reduced, because every time you listen to the radio, the Radio 4, to the news and look on internet, everything is about knife crime. My point is, it's okay for the police. I know they go to Harlow College and go to school and have this thing and they go beep beep and then see if they've got a knife and then take the knife away. But I don't think that's working. For me, it's more about education. You need to educate kids in school. Instead of having a knife, why don't they have a few marbles and kind of game with their friends? So, it's all about education. I know the knife angel which came, it hasn't had much of an effect because kids still carry a knife. In my days, I wouldn't have thought about carrying a knife, but but that's what happened nowadays. But I think it's more about educating and explain to kids what knife can do, because it's ruined a lot of lives, not just the family, but also the person who's actually having to go to prison, and probably they're scared, that's why they're carrying a knife. And I think it's also maybe linked to gang. And so what is the police doing about gang in Harlow? Thank you.
Thanks. I think in terms of responding to your questions, I'll pick up the bit about knife crime first and give you the big picture about what we're doing about that. I don't know if Ben Logan might want to come in. And as regards to the buses in Sumners, I'll actually leave that response to Councillor Charles and the Chief Inspector, because I don't know the answer. I have been spoken to by your councillors about what we can do with it, but actually on the ground response is theirs. So I absolutely recognise that you will be hearing a lot on the radio and on the TV about knife crime. London dominates the media. London is at a record level for knife crime, largely driven by drugs. We started a programme here which was pretty controversial back in 2018. We worked with some academics, a professor from Cardiff University, and we worked with some people who had experience in Glasgow of how to deal with it. And we set up a three-pronged approach to drug and knife crime here, because When I got elected for the first time in 2016, I said to the Chief Constable, what are you going to do about the drug gangs in Essex? And he said, there aren't any. So I got him the evidence to show that he was wrong, which was basically working with communities like this and having meetings and hearing. And the police took on board the fact that there was, whilst not the sort of problem that you would then see in London, there is a problem here in Essex. And we set up an approach. We work really closely with the National Crime Agency, high-end intelligence, helping them understand how to chop off the head of the drug gangster. We work really hard on the ground. You mentioned knife arches, we use those. That's not because we think the people who go through the knife arch are going to be the people who are carrying a knife. Even criminals aren't often that stupid. But actually the way they're deployed is with a thing called Project Servitor, which means that you've got some uniformed officers with the arch, you've got some non-uniformed officers who probably the criminals can spot, and then some slightly more professionally non-uniformed officers who are the people who are actually spotting people who change their behaviour. And it's the people who turn away when they see the knife arch who are the ones you need to stop. Yeah? So we're doing 5 times the level we used to of stop and search. So we are taking drugs and knives off the street. And then really importantly, back in 2018, we set up the Violence and Vulnerability Unit. It got copied. They're now called Violence Reduction Units. There are 20 of them around the country now. The Home Office thought what we were doing was so impressive, they refined it. Okay, we've learned from them as well. It's been an iterative process and we've gotten better at it. But that basically is taking a public health style approach to knife crime. So thinking about what do we need to do for everybody, messaging via social media. That was where the knife angel came in. That was a big message to people about the fact that this is happening, you can talk about it, we are there for you. Stop it being a hidden crime. Then on the other level, working with targeting groups, so going to those schools where we know there is a problem, doing drama groups there, expressing to the kids, so in a way they can understand how they can come to the police. Let them help them understand that the police aren't there just to prosecute them. They're told by the gangs, you've carried drugs now. They get spoofed into carrying drugs. They're told by criminals they can't go to the police. Yes, they can. The police want to help kids get out of drug gangs, not just prosecute you for being in them. And also doing other things with kids, troubled kids in schools. Obviously, sports really work with boys. I'm going to be a bit gendered about this, but they do work with boys.
To be more boys than girls, isn't it?
Yeah. Dance and horse riding really work with girls. Yeah, we did in one school in Southend, we put in a stables program for the girls who were being truant. I said, if you go to maths, you can go to the stables. 100% success rate. They all went to maths. Stop being truant. Yeah. And that sort of thing has a big impact on stopping kids joining these gangs and giving them, you were quite right, that's exactly the sort of thing that we need to do. The benefits being really tangible. So whilst drug-driven knife crime in London is at a record high now, it's in Essex overall 18% lower than its high. And if you look at the harm, what's really surprised me is there's still much more than we'd like going on, but actually the number of people being hospitalised as a result is down by over a quarter. And the number of drug-driven knife homicides is down by over 70%. So we've had some real success. And it's a 10-year programme, so we are now well into it. We started in 2018. It took 3 years for it to start working at all. Because what you're doing basically is you are picking up on today's 12 to 15-year-olds. So they're not the 25-year-old in 10 years' time who is actually running that local gang and making it happen. And obviously, yes, you'd love to change the behaviour of that 25-year-old, but that's really, really hard. Yeah, they're probably more arrestable than changeable. So it is working. I think it's going to get a lot further than it's gone already. the target is to get drug-driven knife crime down by 40% over that 10-year period. We are on track to deliver that. The government's just jacked the target up to 50%. They want it halved. I'm with them. Yeah. Or my only answer to that is give us a bit more money, we'll do more of it because it's working. But that's the bit I wanted to say about how we're approaching drug-driven knife harm. And yes, we're never going to be the national headlines here. We aren't we, if you're being successful? I know we've got the media in the room, and they are absolutely necessary and they hold us to account. But I tell you, nationally, it's bad news that sells.
Thank you for your first question around the issues in Sumners at the moment. I was disappointed and concerned to learn over the bank holiday period that Central Connect, who run their bus service to Sumners, have decided to now cancel their evening and Sunday service. People in Sumners, like all parts of the town, rely on public transport. That bus service is vital for that local community. So to hear there is a localised issue of vandalism going on, frankly, is appalling, and it's not what the neighbourhood policing team I know want to hear, nor is it what the community safety team at Harlow Council want to hear as well. The way this will work is that now we've come off the bank holiday, the community safety team in their community safety hub. The community safety hub is really useful because it brings a range of services, not just the police, fire service, but other bodies, to work together with the council to deal with localised antisocial behaviour issues. So we're going to find out the details of this issue. We want to work with the bus operator, but also with the community, so that we can root out this localised issue of a minority vandalising a key public transport link. So your point is well made, and we are as a council aware of this, and I know that the police will be looking at this issue seriously as well. Just on knife crime very quickly, we were very pleased as a council to help part fund the open gate technology that has been able to, in the town station and in the town centre, catch people carrying knives. On top of that, there has been a range of targeted work that the police has carried out under, more recently, which was reported in the press, Operation Stronghold, where there were knife arches in the town centre, proactively with a range of officers looking to root out those people who think it's okay to carry a knife in our town. It's unacceptable, and we need to stamp that out. Your education point as well is a really good point. We're here in Passmores Academy. I'm pleased to say that Vic Goddard has worked very closely with the council to, one, educate us, but also help us understand how best to work with young people in the town around some of these issues, not just knife crime, but other issues that young girls are facing in the town. And the evidence of work that the school has done here has been really helpful in not just enabling the council, but the police to understand some of those concerns. So thank you for your point.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that over the last 12 months, knife-enabled crime in Harlow has reduced. Is it where we want it to be? No. There's still a lot of work that we need to do, and we need to work with the community and partners and with the community safety partnership to make sure that we continue driving that, driving the education, and driving the proactive work so that we can reduce the number of knife-enabled offences. The latest figures for the west of Essex do show that most victims and suspects are aged between 10 and 19 years old. So absolutely, the focus needs to be on education, and that needs to be joint education, not just with police but other partners and agencies as well, to make sure that we're getting those messages across to the young people in our community. There's a variety of work going on around gangs. I know you mentioned gangs with knife crime. We have Operation Raptor, which is a special team that deal just with gang-related criminality, violence, and supply of Class A drugs. But we also have locally in Harlow 3 children and young people's officers, and they work with all the high and medium risk children that are at risk of exploitation. As we know, gangs do recruit children at a very young age, so we have 3 dedicated officers that work within Harlow to carry out that work alongside partners in social care and education. Thank you.
Coming from gentleman here.
and Church Lane around there. The number of cars that drive up there, bang, 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 bang. What is the law about cars with bang, bang, bang all the time? Can it be stopped and taken off the roads? It is, Sunday morning is terrible. It's also motorbikes that go up there at maybe probably 100 miles an hour. And there's no deterrent whatsoever on that road.
We're on the A414, you said.
Yeah, the four from Markham roundabout to Church Langley, they're going up the hill or coming down with bang, 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 bang as they decelerate. And the noise is terrible. It affects my ears. It's like jet engines.
Yes, I'm sure. Do you think that it's actually the real noise of an engine? Because sometimes they actually buy devices that make those noises to make them look even worse. You don't know.
Is it legal?
Noise pollution is enforceable against, but that's something where we've been working in partnership again, isn't it, Joel?
I would just point out the road that you're referring to obviously has the speed camera there, and any...
Is there a speed camera?
Yeah, as you're coming from Markham down, there is a speed camera.
Is there?
So there is that element of enforcement, but of course no one here is complacent about road safety. We will look at where possible to work with Essex County Council to access funding like we have done in Guildhall Way to reduce the risk of road safety issues. But that is an ongoing piece of work, and what you've shared with us there, we can look at that. One of the things Essex County Council will do is it will do a speed survey of roads to test if cars are moving at a speed that is not acceptable, and then they will take that analysis and decide what is the most appropriate road safety approach to deal with that issue. So if there is a particular issue there is that mechanism that you can trigger to monitor the road and see if there needs to be more preventative work to tackle it.
It appears to me it's the same cars most evenings after work that are going up the road, and noise, they seem to be racing one another.
I know it's going to sound as I'm pushing it back, and I'm not, but it'd be really helpful if either via 101 or online you could report the times and the days and anything you see, because the bigger the evidence base around when and how often, the easier it is for the police to actually target intervention and make a difference. Can you do it online?
Well,
can you do it online? That's probably
we
the
can do
easiest
it
way.
online, but is anybody going to take any notes?
Well, that's the point. if you, in my experience, they won't turn out. No, it's not a 9/9 response. But if you report 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and it's the same times of day and the same descriptions of vehicles, you will get a police response. Sorry?
Between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, one noisy car every night goes
Every
speeding
night.
up.
Work nights, weekends?
No, this is during the week. It's obviously it's just finished
So
work.
it's work nights between 4 and 5. 4:30 and 5.
I've written it down.
As ever, the chief inspector there.
I can't see the car because I'm pigeon.
Okay. But the noise is clearly
There's other issues that I think I've phoned several times in the last couple of weeks about vulnerable people, and I get phone and ambulance. The one last year I phoned for a vulnerable person who was walking through the woods. He had self-harm, his arms, he had all scars. He had all blood, where it looked like he'd been hitting a wall with his knuckles. And then he had scratches all over his face. Right. Then he wanted to walk in the middle of the 414 to get back to Whitechapel Hospital. That's all I could get out of him. I want to get back to Whitechapel Hospital. So I took him onto the allotment site, gave him a bottle of water because he looked very dehydrated, phoned 999, and the police said to me, it's not our problem. Phone an ambulance. I phoned for an ambulance, it's not their problem. Right? Is he breathing? Has he got blood? I said, no, he's got a hospital band on his arm, patient number, and his name and date of birth. And nobody was at 3.5 hours I was with him. And then finally I dialed 999 again, got an ambulance, and I spoke to the girl, very helpful. She couldn't be more helpful. She said, I'll put that down as a priority. And she sent an ambulance from St Albans all the way to Harlow with blue lights and sirens. They jumped out, paramedics all their kit on. Where is the patient? I said, he's quite compliant. It's all I wanted is somebody to take notice that he needed help. But the police weren't interested. I phoned 2 weeks ago about a house. I know she's a druggie, but I phoned up. We hadn't seen her for a week or more. She's normally walking about with bare feet and a dressing gown. And again, it's not a police matter. And I thought, well, who is it that you contact when you've got a vulnerable person who might be dead in the house or laying on the floor, and you don't get anywhere? It's not the first instance. I had a chap outside the ABC boxing club in Monkford's Road, laying half on the road and half on the footpath. You phone up 999, I don't know if he's drunk, he's had a stroke, heart attack or anything else, and for an hour I waited for him. In the end I gave up, and a woman came up, put a cushion under his head and put a blanket on him. I said, I've been what a waste of my time. And they said, it's not a police matter. I said, well, it's a police car turn up, put his blue lights on so cars would drive round him. I then up and got hold of his legs and dragged him onto the footpath. It's ongoing. And I spoke to Paul Austin last summer. I phoned it in. Two chaps running across Lady Shop, Plainfield. He's got a shotgun. He's tucking it down there. He's got surgical gloves on. Right? I expected, he's already fired off 2 shots. I expected the helicopter up and police sirens. Nothing. Not anything. And they said, the police officer are with you now. I said, well, they must be hiding in the grass. There was not one police officer. I waited there. He said, wait there, there'll be police with you. 20 minutes I waited. No police officer turned up. Now, they were trying to get through to the hedge. The following week, same 2 lads stopped me and I saw there was a red motorbike hidden.
You're not using the microphone, so they won't be catching it at all.
Oh, right. And, which one? This one? Right. The same 2 lads stopped me as I was walking across Lady Shop Lane.
If you could hold it there.
Right. Stopped me and they said, how can we get to North Weald without going along the roads? I said, we can't. Hidden in the woods was a red motorbike. I could see it. And they wanted to get on to North Weald. And it was the same 2 lads that one had the shotgun. And I thought, do I phone in? Because no one's going to take me notice. It's all the time. And if you phone 101, 20 minutes later, they think, well, the call's important to us. Don't get anywhere. It's a way. I don't know if you denies 101, but nobody takes any notice of it.
So,
Sorry,
I'll go back to what I said about the reporting on 101 or online when it's not an emergency, which is it's the police understanding the patterns of behaviour. It's not to get a response, it's intelligence so they can actually plan an intervention. My dad was in the police for 37 years. He said
I was in it for 10 years.
He said to me a number of times he actually caught someone in the middle of a crime as a response to 999 was basically the fingers and thumbs of both hands. The number of times he caught people was many, many, many more, all on the back of intelligence, people calling things in, but not an emergency response. That's how it really works. According to him. I've never done it. You've done it yourself.
So,
yeah, so you obviously know a lot more about it than I would. In terms of the relationship with health, so this is a very important issue that we escalated 3 years ago now with the health service, because there was a real gap where the police were being called out by big concerned people like yourself with a real person in front of them who was suffering, police responding, picking them up, taking them to the hospital, and the hospital saying, nothing to do with us, there's nothing wrong with them. You've just got to let them go. Not committing a crime, just out. Now, that was really frustrating for policing because you basically had an officer sitting with someone for a couple of hours at the hospital waiting to be seen when they should be out doing police work. We put in place a structure called Right Care, Right Person, which is an agreement between the National Health Service and policing nationally. And that defines where the handover points are. And what you described in terms of the police response is exactly what's been agreed with the health service. Those, not everything, the gun obviously is nothing to do with the health service, but the people you were describing as being vulnerable, that is a health service response. Now, the fact they had to send someone from St Albans is obviously frustrating, but it was the right thing to happen.
If the ambulance turns up and has to break into that house, they have to call the police.
So if there is someone collapsed behind those doors, I can hand you over to the Fire and Rescue Service who can tell you what's supposed to happen.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, we attend those, so we work in partnership very closely with the Ambulance Service Trust, so every time we've got, but our agreement is there's got to be someone, the ambulance service must be on scene, so we don't tie a crew up unless there's an immediate risk. And when I do we have a duty role called Nilo in the evening, quite often we get the phone calls with the ones that are a little bit blurred, and we always start with a yes, we're coming, and look for a reason to go, not to go, rather than not to go. So police used to have that responsibility. We've taken it on because we've got numerous keys, big yellow keys, down to more subtle versions to get into premises. And we get some really positive feedback from working with the evidence.
In Harlow Council.
So,
all it is that I know we're a little bit over time now, but I also know that the school, in conversations with the school just then, that they need to set up for an exam tomorrow.
Do we have any more? We've had a number of questions. Okay, just ask if anybody
quick
else.
question from this gentleman, and then a very quick one there, but I think you'll understand the time constraints that we have now.
And thank you very much. I'm sorry if I'm.
Got two quick questions to the fire chief, so you can sit on the end there. With the proliferation of high-rise buildings in Harlow, are we likely to see at some point the return of the aerial ladder platform? Big tall telehandler that goes up to the second one, so you can ask me question, is what specific additional equipment and tactics have you got in place to deal with the electric vehicle fires, particularly given there was a Canadian firefighter who died tackling a vehicle fire in a basement, and this has been one of the key issues of electric vehicle fires, not so much out in the open, but in basement areas and multi-storey car parks.
Oh, fantastic interview questions, very good questions indeed. So from the high-rise perspective, part of our community risk management plan, part of the response element of that is we're doing 100% review of our aerial ladder platforms, our 27 metre aerial ladder platforms. Some are coming to the end of their lives and looking for replacement and where they're located. So you may think it's a good idea to put an aerial on a station ground where you've got high-rise buildings, but the most common use for aerials is for exterior firefighting, not for rescue, and for an alternative means of putting a water main into a building. So that's the reason. So we're looking at that now. We've currently got 4 in the county. One is at Chelmsford, Southend, Grays and Colchester, and we're reviewing where they're going to go. So that's an ongoing piece of work, and all our specialist appliances other than the 66 frontline fire engines, we know where they are, but lots of other specials we've got as well in the county. We're reviewing all those as well. Speaking as a hazmat advisor, my day role, I get called out quite a lot to electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles with lithium-ion batteries, and all our crews receive a lot of training in that. I would suggest that the UK Fire and Rescue Service it's a challenging incident to attend. Any fire within a confined space, any fire gases is a potential explosive atmosphere, and our crews are trained to deal with those potential outcomes and put in place those potential mitigations. So a compartment, as that tragic loss of those firefighter in that other incident, the issues you've got with lithium-ion batteries, this is why while the e-scooters have been banned on Transport for London, is you get a rapidly escalating fire if you get a catastrophic thermal runaway. I'm catastrophising a little bit there, but if you've got a battery that's been damaged, they basically go to fire immediately. And we don't like them at all. We don't want people to charge them in their houses. We don't like, you know, vehicles, cars that are run with lithium-ion batteries. They've got protective cages, and we work quite closely with companies like Ford Dunton, so our crews have familiarisation visits, so they have an understanding of the things that are going to hurt them. But the key thing for us is we use copious amounts of water, which is a fire service tradition, a lot of incidents anyway. But at the end of the day, if it's in the open, we're going to let it burn, because 9 times there's no people involved. If we're going to, by approaching the incident and deal with the incident, sometimes the hardest thing at an incident is to do nothing. But if we're going to put our people at risk, we're not going to do that. So that's an informed decision. But you are right, there is instances where you might turn up in an incident, you're not fully aware that's involved, but then you like to think our PPE, our training, the decision we make to open a compartment, which as soon as you open a compartment in a fire, you change those conditions. So that's a conscious decision. So we call it weight of attack and window of opportunity in the fire service. We always work on weight of attack, how much water, the number of firefighters, the size of the jet. You talked about the air ladder platforms, all the specialist kit we've got there, and our incident commanders are fully trained to consider that, and you know, we try to avoid those situations. At the end of the day, we can't remove the hazard totally because it's the nature of the job we do. But we can mitigate it to a point where it's a reasonable risk.
Is there any sort of plans to sort of use sailors, like Norwegian ferries for their car transport, as they're putting high volume saline tanks with multi-jet applicators, so they bust the windows front and back, and then they have a boom with multiple jets launching huge volumes of saline, which are found more effective than water.
Yeah, the National Fire Chiefs Council are conducting research as we speak for that and other elements. The fact the fire service has now been brought back into a government department that's responsible for prevention and protection gives us a louder voice in the room, which is a real positive. Our own chief has now become the deputy chair of the NFCC, which means we really have got people's ear, and Chief Officer is definitely an advocate for this. There's several. It's part of our CRMP because it is evolving technology, isn't it? We're evolving technology, best sites as well, the battery energy storage sites. We've got those. There's no legislation at the moment that involves that. We're petitioning for that legislation for protection so we can protect our crews. But we also we have what we call site-specific risk information plans. So we plan for the worst. Yeah, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. We do. It's the nature of the job. So where we have knowledge of these sites and the potential foreseeable risks, we'll put in place pre-fire plans and tactics that we will apply to deal with that incident. So there's you see a lot of companies are now getting involved with the saline is one option. The disadvantage you've got, and I'm going off at attack because this is a passionate subject for me because it's I'm a firefighter. But very quickly, it's a very good point you make. If we put lithium-ion batteries into water without creating contaminated water and there's potential environmental impact, if we let it burn on a ship, obviously that's not an option, is it? So yeah, we're very careful how we do it. But there's ongoing technology. There's lots of schools of thought on this, but the key thing really is to protect the exposures and to keep people away and to minimise the environmental impact.
To wind your windows up if you're in a motorway.
Yeah, don't go breathing it in. The fire gases are not nice off us. Understatement there.
Strictly from a council perspective, really good points you've raised there. First of all, from the council's perspective, preparedness is really important. We are a community where we have a number of high-rise buildings, and you will have seen reported recently in the local press Redstone House. I'm pleased to say that the local authority, fire service, and in conjunction with the Police and Fire Crime Commissioner, we're working very closely together on that matter, as we always do around high-rise buildings. The key is preparedness, and as such, as part of the consultation that's recently taken place around the community risk management plan for the county, we put in a submission as a council, and we're very keen to see more exercises to test preparedness in Harlow, because we have high-rise buildings and other facilities where I think it's appropriate that we do those types of exercises. And you will have seen reported exercises have taken place in the town recently. The only other point I would just raise with you is, as ever, one of the key priorities must be proactivity. As such, the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner recently held a roundtable with local authorities, the political leadership and chief executives to discuss high-rise buildings and place a strategy on top of that. That work is ongoing alongside the operational considerations that the guys that go out there and fight the fires are doing. So in Harlow in particular, the council is very focused on this issue. We're even sharing our services with the fire service to make sure that they are supported as best they can be.
So,
one last one, Glenn.
Yeah, one last one, very quick one from this gentleman.
It's very quick. Just go back on knife crime. Recently, Harlow Council, along with the police, held a series of safety meetings for year 11s from schools in Harlow. Over 200 attended. One of the subjects was knives, and one of the statistics that the children were told was that 60% of the people who were injured, stabbed or cut, were by their own knives, and that shocked a lot of them. Their own knives were used to cut themselves or stab themselves. And I spoke to some of the youngsters afterwards, and they were very surprised at that, and it frightened them. So I think that is a good thing to go down that road in the future.
Thanks, and it's very true. If you take a knife to a fight, you've got to expect to get hurt. That's just the way it is. Thank you all very much indeed for your points and questions. I think we, as ever, these are incredibly valuable meetings. We do get some really useful feedback, stuff that we have to note and act on. So again, I thank you all for giving it your evening for us. We appreciate it, and I hope it's been some help to you as well. Thank you again, and have a good evening.